Hey there, sleepy heads. Tonight we brush off the centuries, brush away the mud, and tiptoe into a forgotten war where the ground still holds secrets. Somewhere in the quiet French countryside, where sheep now graze over old battlefields, a farmer's plow clinks against something not quite rock, not quite bone. You kneel, fingers brushing past roots and earthworms, and tug free a metal canister sealed tight, like time itself has held its breath for 100 years. Inside, a letter. Faded, curled, untouched. It was never opened, never read, and never meant to be found. You probably won't survive this war, let's be honest. It's World War, and the odds of walking away unscared, body or soul, are thinner than your rations. But someone long ago did survive just enough to write this letter, and you're about to step into his boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That's how I know you're out there. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your little corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You smell the wet soil before you see it. Rich, ancient earth clings to your boots, heavy and unwilling to let go, like it knows you're an outsider. And maybe you are, because this isn't your world, not really. It's the year 1997, and a local farmer named Henry Godet is just trying to clear a stubborn patch of land for potatoes when he hits something solid beneath the plow. At first he thinks it's old metal, junk, maybe an unexploded shell. Those still turn up, even after all this time. But this has edges, corners, and a seal. It's a cylinder, rust-flecked and cold to the touch, buried just below the roots. He wrestles it free, grunting, cursing softly in the rural dialect of the Meuse. And when it pops open with a metallic sigh, like something exhaling after a century of silence, he finds the letter. No name, no envelope, just yellowed paper, folded and protected by the container's airtight shell. Henry, who once taught school before taking over the family farm, doesn't need long to realize what he's looking at. A soldier's handwriting, ink faded but legible, dated March 17, 1918. The language is English, and the words, well, they still bleed. You rewind the clock, back to 1918, the last bloody year of what they still call the Great War. You are Private Thomas Elwood, age 21, formerly a railway clerk from Yorkshire, with a fondness for lemon drops and brass buttons. You're currently sitting in a dugout so cramped you can hear the lice scratching behind your ear. You shift your weight on the soggy plank beneath you, splinters and all, and pull out a pencil. Not because you're feeling inspired, but because, somehow, you've lived long enough to be bored. And because, in your heart of hearts, you still believe someone's reading your letters. My dearest, you don't finish the sentence. Instead, you pause. The candle flickers. Someone swears in the corridor outside the dugout. A familiar voice, probably Hargreaves, with his filthy jokes and foot rot. And you listen for gunfire. Nothing yet. In the distance, the front is quiet tonight. Which means, of course, that something horrible is probably about to happen. Quiet is dangerous in war. It means someone is planning something. Still, you write. Here's where historians often pause. That moment, the pause before writing, has filled entire dissertations. Was it fear? Censorship? A mental stutter from a war-battered mind. Historians still argue whether soldiers self-censored out of loyalty or trauma, or because the things they saw were too big to fit in words. But you? You pause because you don't know how to say "I'm still alive" without sounding smug. And you don't want to write "I'm afraid," even though the dugout smells like mildew and dread. Instead, you write about the weather. It rained again today. Of course it did. The mud here has its own personality. I think it growled at me this morning. You smile at your own absurdity. A joke helps. You even underline it, hoping it gets a laugh on the other end. But the truth is, no one has responded to your last 3 letters. The post is unreliable. Mailbags go missing. Or maybe people just stop writing and they can't bear to imagine what might happen to you next. You don't blame them. Outside, the trench stinks of rot and rusted hopes. It's not the cinematic war you imagined when you enlisted. It's not even the war the posters promised. No noble charges, no flags waving, no polished boots. Just waterlogged ground and men who stopped believing in victory and started believing in superstition. You believe in the letter, Every few days, you write. Not because it might get delivered, but because writing means you haven't surrendered your voice yet. And what a ridiculous, stubborn voice it is. Remember that officer? Lieutenant Stroud, who insists on shaving every morning, even with bombs falling like hail. That guy's mustache has more discipline than the entire battalion. You wrote about him once, called him the only man who could survive mustard gas and still worry about a 5 o'clock shadow. You fold that joke into this letter too. Maybe it'll get a smile, and then there's her. You haven't named her yet in any letter, though you write to her every time. It's your private joke. She's my dearest, or you. The girl you met in the reading room. The one who called you a clever goose for pretending to study Greek just so you could sit across from her. In the margins of this latest letter, you sketch a violet. You press one into your notebook days later. It doesn't survive, but the drawing does. Flash forward again. Henry, the French farmer, carefully unfolds the page. He can't make out the entire message, not yet. He doesn't speak English, so he brings it to a museum in Verdun. They run the ink under forensic lights. The letter is scanned, stabilized, translated. The results are heartbreakingly clear. But we're not there yet. Right now, you, Private Thomas Elwood, are still writing. You're almost finished with the letter when you hear it. A low whistle rising. Incoming shell? You don't think. You grab your helmet, throw yourself flat. The ground explodes just beyond the trench wall. Mud rains down like soup made of old bones. Your candle goes out. You clutch the letter to your chest. When the smoke clears, someone yells that Hargreaves is down. You crawl toward the sound, pocket the letter, and forget about it for now. Later that night, you remember. The letter is safe. You tuck it into a small metal container, an old canister for tobacco maybe. You seal it shut. You don't know why. You just feel like this one matters. You plan to mail it in the morning, but morning never comes the way you expect it to. Because that was March 17th, 1918, the last day you saw the sun from a trench. And so the letter sleeps. Buried under a collapsed wall of timber and clay, beneath helmets and boots and names no one remembers, until 1997 when the earth coughs it back up. You wrote, "If this letter never reaches you, just know, something in me refused to die silent. I wrote. I tried. And that has to be enough. Sleep well, Thomas. We're not done yet. Chapter 2. You hold your breath, not because the air smells of rot and damp, though it does, but because your hand is trembling. The pencil hovers above the paper, smudging slightly where your last word ended. You stare at that half sentence, the one you left hanging before the shell hit, and wonder what it was meant to say. The date is still there, March 17, 1918. You haven't crossed it out. You're not the kind of person who scratches through the past. You're sitting on a makeshift stool in the rear trench, somewhere between Éparges and Verdun, where the ground has teeth, and the air tastes like rust. You never meant to be here. You were supposed to be working the rails, writing receipts, collecting fares, fixing the schedules in a little glass booth at the Leeds Central Station. Remember that? The familiar clack of the telegraph, the smell of coal smoke in your coat every evening, and the flirtatious way the tea lady would slip an extra sugar lump into your cup on rainy days. That all feels like someone else's life now. Your story didn't start in a trench. It started with ink-stained fingers, a boyhood dream of being a journalist, and a head full of poetry you never dared read aloud. You remember the first time you wrote a story, age 7, on butcher's paper. You misspelled adventure and wrote dragon with 2 G's, but you were proud of it. Your mother taped it to the wall, next to the hearth. Funny, isn't it? You always thought words would be your sword in life, that you'd wield sentences like sabers, but now you carry a Lee Enfield rifle and a bayonet that hasn't been cleaned in 2 weeks. You're not slashing through metaphors, you're surviving in mud, and still, you write. The road to war was paved with good intentions and very bad decisions. When the recruitment posters came to town, you didn't rush to enlist, not at first. You watched your friends go, waving their caps with pride and naive cheers, believing it would all be over by Christmas. That was back in 1914. You waited until March 1916. You remember the day because your father's newspaper arrived late, and you had nothing to read on the train. You sat bored in a sunbeam, saw a boy, no older than 16, handing out flyers. You took one. Your country needs you. Standard stuff. Kitchener's mustache doing most of the emotional labor. But on the back, A small line, handwritten in pencil. There are no writers in coortis. You laughed, bitterly, and threw it away. Then you picked it back up. You joined a week later. Training was nothing like you expected. Turns out, all those books you read about honor and chivalry, absolute rubbish. The trenches aren't the romantic moors of fiction. They're ditches of despair. But you don't know that yet, not in training. In camp, they give you a uniform that doesn't fit, boots that leak, and a rifle you're terrified to hold. You march for hours. You fall on your face in the mud. You learn to shoot, clean, strip, repeat. You learn to sleep in 15-minute bursts and wake to bugles and shouting. You learn that the man in charge of laundry hates everyone equally. Your best mate during training is a wiry lad named Franklin Hargreaves. You call him Fig because he once tried to barter a tin of jam for a day off. It didn't work, but it earned him a black eye and an eternal nickname. Fig is from Manchester, works in a paper mill. He can't write more than his name, but he tells the best stories, especially when they're completely untrue. I once kissed a duchess, he claims, on your 4th night in camp. On a bet, smelled like goose fat and regret. You don't believe him, but you laugh anyway. When you're deployed to France, Fig is assigned to the same company. You feel relief, which surprises you. You didn't expect to need anyone, but trench life changes people, fast. The first time you see the front, it's worse than you imagined. The mud has layers. Some of it is sticky like porridge. Some of it sucks at your boots like it's hungry. And some of it, don't ask how, smells like sulfur and old dreams. Your trench is called Number 9. They all have names for some reason. The neighboring trench is Sorrow's Nook. Someone even painted it in red on the support beam. Fig calls it Misery's Bathtub. You're posted to the fire step 3 days after arrival. You're issued 20 rounds, 1 gas mask, and a tiny dented mirror. For shaving, the quartermaster says deadpan. You use it to signal across the trench instead. Morse code in sunlight flashes. Mostly jokes, sometimes just. Still alive? Barely you? Alive enough to hate the stew. Letters become everything. Some men never get any. They pretend it doesn't bother them, but it does. You get one every couple of weeks from your mother. She's the one who taught you to write, told you stories about King Arthur, made you promise to keep your soul clean, no matter what war did to your hands. Her last letter said, I had a dream I saw you in a long hallway, but I couldn't reach you. You just kept walking. You looked older and tired. You folded it twice and put it in your breast pocket. Read it until the ink almost vanished. But there's another letter, the one you've never received, the one you're always hoping will come. From her, the girl from the reading room, hazel eyes, sharp tongue, wrote in the margins of her book and caught you reading her notes. You spent an hour arguing over whether Lord Byron was a narcissist or just misunderstood. You still say narcissist. She said, that's rich coming from a man who stares into mirrors when he thinks no one's watching. You didn't even know her name until the last day, but you never forgot it after. Clara Winslow. You still write to her, even if she never writes back. Trench life is, in a word, vile. The rain never stops. The walls sag with moisture. There's a fungus growing on one of the support beams that looks suspiciously like a face. Don't stare at it too long, Fig warns. It winks. There are rats the size of cats. They chew on boots. They chew on corpses. Sometimes they crawl across your chest at night. You wake with a scream caught in your throat and the squelch of mud in your ears. And yet, you write. You write when shells fall. You write when the sky turns yellow. You write when Fig breaks his toe tripping over a buried helmet. You write because writing reminds you who you are. Sometimes you don't even send the letters. You keep them, sealed in tins, buried deep in your pack. One of those letters is the one Henry Godet will find 80 years later. But for now, it's just a piece of paper, still fresh, still smudged with pencil and fingerprints. One morning, a pigeon flies overhead, low, frantic. You watch it vanish into the haze. Message bird, Fig says. Bet it knows better places to be. You nod, and you write. If I were a pigeon, I'd fly straight to you. No stamps, no address, just instinct. You smile. That's good. Maybe too good. Still, you fold the page. You slip it into the canister. just like the others, and the letter waits. It waits through another bombardment, through 3 more letters never posted. Through the night Hargraves cries in his sleep, and you pretend not to hear. It waits for a century. Chapter 3. The moon tonight is more silver than white. A smear of pale light above the trench line that makes every helmet look like it's been dusted with frost. You shift your weight on the duckboards, listening for the quiet sounds, the good ones. Water dripping steadily from sandbags or Fig snoring in that back corner wheeze. Not the bad ones. Not the sudden snap of boots rushing. Not the whisper of something slithering through no man's land. And certainly not the silence. Because silence here is the loudest thing of all. You press the butt of your rifle to your knee and glance down at your lap. Another page. Another chance. Another letter home. Though you don't even bother dating it anymore. What's the point, really? It's not like the post gets through. Half of it gets destroyed in shellfire. The other half is read by officers who black out anything that sounds too truthful. You once tried describing the color of a dead man's teeth. That section came back with a thick black line through it. As if censoring the words somehow censors the war itself. Still, you write. Dear you, the sky was unusually calm today, like it's ashamed of what it did yesterday. I heard a bird, I swear I did. Just a quick chirp. Sounded wrong, like it didn't belong. Maybe it didn't, but I held on to it. That one sound. I don't know why. You stop there. Your pencil has a habit of dragging when you're tired. There's a muddy fingerprint in the margin now, probably yours. You look at it, and wonder if someone will study this one day. The smudge. The angle of your letters, like archaeologists studying a message in a bottle from the bottom of the sea. You almost laugh. What a ridiculous idea. Who would want a letter from a nobody soldier? You don't know it yet, but someone will. A room full of someones. A museum crowd will one day hold its breath, while a woman in white gloves reads your words aloud. In a glass case full of ghosts, but we're not there yet. Mail call, when it happens, is sacred. Men will trade cigarettes for a letter. A single envelope becomes currency. Some guys pretend they got mail just to feel seen. Fig once opened someone else's letter and cried anyway. The postman, Sergeant Mowbray, is an odd one. Tall with shoulders like a tree trunk, and a voice like someone chewing gravel. He walks the trench with a limp and an empty eye socket. Lost during Passchendaele, still wears the patch proudly, says it gives him character. Mowbray never smiles when he hands you a letter. Don't get your hopes up, he grunts. Most of them are lies or goodbye notes. He means well. The thing is, you haven't gotten a letter from Clara in over 6 months. Not since she sent that short one, folded like origami, that just said, "Are you still you?" You didn't know how to answer. Still don't. One night, you overhear 2 officers whispering near the dugout entrance. Their words are clipped, urgent. Something about a delivery that never came. Pouch never arrived, one says. Whole courier team lost near St. Neil. The other swears under his breath. You file that away. Courier routes go through hell. Letters vanish all the time. But you start to wonder, what if she did write back? What if the letter is out there, stuck somewhere in the woods, trapped in the belly of a pigeon that never made it? Or dropped, buried beneath 1,000 boots. The thought eats at you. You write again. My dearest, I'm starting to think letters are like prayer. Mostly unanswered, but better than silence. I wonder if you write back, and your letters go missing the same way mine do. Maybe we're both whispering into different tunnels, waiting for an echo that never comes. Fig leans over your shoulder. Still writing your imaginary girl, eh? You grunt. She's not imaginary. Right. Reading room beauty with the cheekbones of justice. You forgot you'd said that once. It makes you blush. Fig pats your shoulder. Keep writing. Keeps you sane. Then he adds, or at least sane enough to survive this dump. You don't tell anyone about the dreams. They start about 3 weeks after you arrive in this sector. Always the same. You're standing in a long, narrow corridor. Wood panel. Cold. At the end is a door, and behind it, a voice reading your letter aloud. But you can't move, can't open the door. You wake up before you hear the words. You mention it to Mowbray once, casually. He doesn't laugh, just says, "My brother used to dream about letters. Turned out he was dreaming from the other side." You don't ask what he means. Historians still argue whether trench dreams were side effects of trauma, gas exposure, or the brain's last defense against the unbearable. But here, it doesn't feel academic. It feels like prophecy. A week later, your unit is rotated to the reserve line. Back from the front, but only barely. Enough time to rest, rebuild, wash the lice off your skin, though not your soul. You unpack your few belongings, a cracked mirror, a pencil stub, your canister of letters. You read them again. One in particular feels different. You don't remember writing it. The handwriting is yours, but the words are oddly calm, almost serene. If this is my last letter, let it be soft. Let it be about the trees I miss, the smell of ink, the sound of trains at dusk. Don't let it be about fear. There's enough of that here already. You read it twice, then seal it in the canister again. Maybe that's the one that survives. You talk less these days, listen more. Fig does enough talking for both of you anyway. He's worried about a room more gas. Word is, the Germans have a new method. Chlorine mixed with something worse, a slow fog. Sits low to the ground, crawls like a dog looking for scraps. You've heard of it before, of course. Saw a man once whose lungs never stopped bleeding. But rumor travels faster than science. No one knows the truth. The thing is, you've started smelling something strange in the air. Bitter. Metallic. Like spoiled fruit and soap. You keep your gas mask close. But it's old. The straps are loose. You write a note on the inside of your jacket. If found, please send this to Clara Winslow Leeds. Tell her I meant every word. It's not official. It's not regulation. But it's something. One night, when you're supposed to be on rest shift, you sneak up to the edge of the trench and sit beneath the stars. It's quiet. Too quiet. You take out the latest letter. You don't know it. But this one, the one you're holding now, is the one that never gets mailed. The one that slips from your pack when you dive for cover tomorrow. The one that gets buried when the trench wall collapses during the morning barrage. The one that sleeps for 79 years. You read it over. You add one more line at the bottom. Please remember me not for how I died, but for how I wrote. That's the only part of me that felt real. You fold it, seal the canister, and tuck it away where time can't find it. At least, not yet. Chapter 4. You wake up scratching. It's not poetic. There's no metaphor, just the burning, crawling, soul-sapping itch that lives in your seams, your socks, your collar, the waistband of your trousers. It's the lice again. You know it before you even open your eyes. They're part of trench life, like mud, or mess tin stew, or death. Morning sunshine, Fig mutters from his bunk across the dugout, watching you as you peel off your jacket and give it a good shake. Tiny pale bugs scatter, dropping to the floor like dandruff with legs. You both pretend not to notice. You try to make a joke about it. At least someone's interested in my blood. But your voice comes out croaky. The air inside this little cavern is damp, sour with sweat and old tobacco. It's dark, lit only by the soft glow of a rationed candle, wedged into a broken rum bottle. A faint smell of mold clings to the timber beams. You scratch your chest and think, this is how people go mad. The trench you're stationed in now is deeper than the last, wood reinforced, with a proper duckboard floor and a sandbag lip. You've stopped naming them. Names make things feel permanent, and you know this place will be swallowed by earth and time like all the others. But it does have a strange new feature, a corner where, without fail, you can hear a faint whispering at night. You first noticed it when you were on sentry duty. Eyes straining in the darkness, watching the horizon where enemy flares sometimes pop like fireworks. You turned your head, just slightly, and heard it, like someone speaking just below breath, in English, or maybe not. At first you chalked it up to the wind, but then Corporal Dawes mentioned it too. Cornered by the mortar nest, he said over breakfast, chewing hard biscuits like they personally offended him. Talks sometimes. Can't make out the words, just talking. You nodded but said nothing. You're not sure what scares you more, the whispering, or the fact that everyone accepts it like it's weather. Lice, on the other hand, are much more straightforward. They bite. They multiply. They infest everything from your hair to the folds of your underclothes. You've seen entire shirts thrown onto bonfires just to rid them of the crawlies. One bloke tried boiling his uniform and ended up with something resembling a wool pancake. You've tried vinegar, ash, scalding water. None of it lasts more than a day or two. The men have jokes, of course. Mine have names, Fig says. Big one's Henry. bites like a bloody terrier. Someone else swears his lice are breeding with the rats. You'd laugh, but the rats, oh the rats, are the real horror show. They skitter over your boots at night, not small ones either. Big as kittens, fat from feeding on corpses in no man's land. You've seen one dragging a belt buckle in its mouth like a prize. Trench pets, fate calls them. Only ones here not dying of boredom. One night you wake to one, gnawing on the toe of your boot. Another is nibbling a candle stub someone dropped. You fling a tin mug at it. It squeals, vanishes. They always come back. The trench rumor mill never sleeps. And right now, the hottest topic isn't rats, or lice, or the whispering corner. It's the dead man's post. Apparently, a pouch of letters was found, old ones, half mangled, stuffed inside a German soldier's coat. Some dated over a year ago, some in English, others French or German. No one knows how he got them. Was he looting corpses? A spy? A postman who got turned around and died trying to deliver them. The letters are being reviewed now by officers. Most won't be forwarded on. Too old. Too upsetting. But the idea gets under your skin like the lice do. What if your letters are out there too? Misplaced. Forgotten. Rotting in a ditch somewhere? You write anyway. My dearest, I think about ink more than blood these days. I wonder what it would be like to press a fresh sheet of paper flat and just write about anything. Crumpets, rain, a bad poem, the color of your coat. I miss the world, all of it. Even the boring bits, especially the boring bits. You stop. You want to say more. You want to say I miss you, but that feels dangerous, like naming a ghost. That night while you're trying to sleep, someone screams down the trench. Not panic, fear, real fear. You scramble to your boots, rifle slung, helmet crooked, and rush toward the noise. It's Private Malley, pale, shaking, eyes wide. He's pointing at the whispering corner. There was someone there, he gasps. I saw a hand, pale, just the fingers, reaching. You and Fig search it together with lanterns. Nothing, no footprints, just the usual damp, the scent of mildew, the faint groan of timber. It's the trench settling, Fig says. You both know that's not true. Trenches don't settle with fingers. You don't sleep well that night. Historians still argue whether trench hauntings were psychological reactions to trauma, or simply the result of long-term sleep deprivation. Either way, something in that corner doesn't feel right. You move your letters, just in case. One evening, a chaplain visits your line. He's soft-voiced, clean-shaven, smells faintly of lavender soap. He offers blessings, says prayers, doesn't push too hard. You're grateful for that. When he gets to you, he pauses. You're the one who writes, he says, like it's something sacred. You nod, awkwardly. He smiles gently. Good. The ones who write tend to last longer. You're building a thread. You think about that for a long time after he leaves. A thread? To what? Home. Hope. You hope the thread is strong enough to stretch across war zones and jost corners and biting insects, and through the earth itself. In the corner of the trench, someone scrawled a sentence in charcoal. Write like someone will find it, even if you don't. You add to it beneath, and write like you're still alive. No one crosses it out. The next morning, you find that someone's added a third line, even if you're not. You don't ask who wrote it. You just nod. My dearest, we keep a running joke that the rats know more than the generals. They probably do. I saw one drag a spoon into a bolt hole like it was planning a dinner party. It's the little things that keep us going. The smell of tea, even if it's weak. A dry sock. A memory of your voice. You underline your voice. You wonder if you'd recognize it now, or if time and smoke and distance have made it unrecognizable, like your own reflection. Still, you write. Because something deep in your bones tells you that one day, long after you're gone, someone will read this. And maybe, just maybe, they'll feel less alone. Chapter 5. The sky bleeds yellow at the edges tonight, just a thin line of toxic light, where the last of the sunset dares brush against the low-hanging clouds. You sit with your back against a sandbag wall, boots off, one sock draped over a rusted bayonet to dry. Your feet throb. They stink. You've stopped pretending otherwise. Congratulations, Fig mutters, wrinkling his nose. Your toes have declared independence. You chuckle softly, but it fades quick. No one really laughs here for long. The quiet always creeps back in. It's It's been 4 days since you saw anyone die up close. That might be a record. You don't say it out loud. Saying things out loud makes them real, and reality tends to snap like old rope when stretched too tight. So you write instead, "My dearest, some of the men are starting to believe the trench itself is alive. They say it shifts when you're not looking. I swear, yesterday the latrine was 2 feet to the left. Either the ground's moving or I'm losing it. I hope it's the ground." You pause, tapping the end of your pencil against your lip. Somewhere above, an owl hoots. Or maybe it's a distant shell whine. You honestly can't tell anymore. The pencil slips again. You curse under your breath and smear the line with your thumb. Not for the first time, you wonder how many letters look like this, half legible, patched with mud, written like a confession under duress. And maybe that's exactly what they are. Rations came late today. You chewed through stale biscuit, corned beef, and what Fig insists is turnip tea. Though it tastes more like hot disappointment. No matter. You've eaten worse. You once bit into a tin of something labeled meat surprise. The surprise was that it was mostly gristle and a lone, ominous tooth. Not your own. Food in the trenches is a gamble. You win if you don't get dysentery. You lose if you identify the meat. Wouldn't be shocked if this stew walked in here on its own last week. Someone says from down the line. You grin. Humor is the last defense. When the soup looks back. A few new replacements arrived today. Fresh uniforms. Eyes wide. Boots still shiny. You try not to get attached. You've learned your lesson. The bright-eyed don't last. The war doesn't like optimism. One of them, barely more than 16, asked you what it was like out there. You looked at him, thought about saying, "It's like drowning with your eyes open, like holding your breath every time you blink, like forgetting what your own voice sounds like, because you're always whispering in fear." Instead, you said, "You'll get used to it." You hated yourself a little after that. That night, you dream about the letter again, the one you haven't written yet, the final one. In the dream, you're holding it, and you know it's the last, not because it says so, because it feels so. The page is blank. You wake in a sweat, still. You write anyway. Clara, I keep dreaming about water, not the kind we're stuck in, this wet, sullen mud that never lets go, but clean water, rain on a roof, a riverbank, your kettle boiling. I think my memory is trying to save me. It's handing me small, quiet things to keep me human. If I survive this war, it'll be because I remembered the sound of your laugh. Over the scream of a shell, you fold the page. This one feels different. Like it knows it won't be sent. Like it's already saying goodbye. But you seal it up, tuck it in the same battered tin that holds the rest, and whisper to it, "Not yet." The next morning, the sky is low and mean. Cloud cover hangs like a wet rag over everything. Your section is sent to patch the wiring near the listening posts. It's dangerous work, stretching barbed wire just outside the trench, crawling through mud and frost and twisted roots, while hoping the enemy is still asleep. You draw the short straw. You and Fig crawl out just before dawn. It's deathly quiet. The ground is soft beneath your knees. Not with moisture, but something worse. Something you don't look at too closely. The barbed wire catches on your sleeve. You free yourself, breath held tight in your chest, then whistle. Gunfire. The ground erupts behind you. You drop low. Mud sprays your face. Fig yells something, but you can't hear him. Another shot, closer. You don't remember grabbing your rifle, but it's in your hands now. You crawl. You don't look back. You make it to the lip of the trench and drop like a stone. Fig crashes in beside you, panting. That, he gasps, was not part of the job description. You can't speak, because your tin, your letter 10, is missing. Somewhere between the post and the trench, it fell, buried in the blast. Swallowed by the war, you sit up slowly, numb. It's just paper, you tell yourself. Just words, but it's not. That tin held your truth, your sanity, your voice, and now it's part of the ground, just like the men you've stopped remembering the names of. You want to go back for it, but you know what that would mean, certain death. So you don't. You sit in silence for the rest of the morning, covered in mud and regret. And you don't write, not for 2 days. When you finally pick up your pencil again, your hand trembles. Clara, I lost the others, all the things I meant to say. I like to think the ground will keep them safe. Maybe someone will find them someday. Maybe they'll wonder who I was. Maybe they'll know I was more than just a soldier. I was a boy who loved stories, who believed in paper, who remembered the shape of your smile, even when my boots were full of rot. If this is the only one that survives, let it carry the weight of all the others. You don't even bother folding it. You just hold it for a long time. Your last defense, a single stubborn thread. In a world of unraveling, a week later, during a brief moment of calm, a French sapper, Henry, is assigned to your trench to help with a collapsed dugout wall. He's quiet, gentle, good hands. During the dig, his shovel hits something metallic. He pulls it out slowly. It's a tin, battered, sealed tight, faintly dented. He wipes it off. "I think this is yours," he says. "It's not, but it will be. Just not yet." Chapter 6. The tin feels heavier than it should, not just with paper or mud, but with memory, with you. It rests in your palm like a relic. A pocket-sized sarcophagus, cradling the voice you thought you'd lost. Henry brushes off more dirt, his eyes catching yours. That quiet, knowing smile again, the kind that doesn't need words to say you're not alone. You nod, fingers trembling, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, the trench falls silent inside your mind. Even the war hushes for a moment. You want to say thank you, but the words lodge in your throat, thick with the taste of iron and mud and too many things unsaid. Night falls like a slow breath, not the kind that soothes, but the kind that warns you. Sleep with one eye open. You wait until the others drift into whatever version of rest they can manage. Fig snoring faintly beneath his greatcoat, someone muttering in their dreams 2 bunks over. Then, by the candle stub, you open the tin. It creaks slightly. The metal's bent in places, seamed with grime. But inside, letters. Wrinkled, spotted, edges curled like old leaves in autumn, yet still legible, still alive. The scent of old ink and paper rises up, somehow cleaner than the air you breathe. A memory of home, of desks and fireplaces, of words written by firelight and sealed with hope. The first one you pull out, you remember it instantly. You'd written it just days before the explosion. The one about rain on rooftops, and the sound of Clara's laugh echoing in your memory, like church bells in fog. You run your fingers over the page. You mouth the words like prayer. You picture her reading them, maybe with her hair tucked behind one ear, maybe seated by a kitchen window, holding the paper to her chest, like a talisman against the dark. "Looks like the war didn't swallow them after all," Henry says, crouched nearby. You smile faintly, not at him, but at the idea that something survived, that not everything is forgotten here. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you sit, reading each letter by flickering light, turning pages like they might turn time itself. Each one is a breath, a heartbeat, a truth. They weren't just written to Clara. They were written for yourself, to keep your soul from slipping out through the seams. That's the thing about letters. They wait. They don't die, even when the people who wrote them do. Word spreads about the tin. A surgeon comes to look, then a lieutenant. There's talk of sending it back to London, to the archive, to preserve the soldier's voice, as if the letters are fossils, as if you're already gone. You watch as Henry wipes down the tin one final time, carefully reseals it. He handles it like it might break the world. "Maybe they'll bring some comfort," he says. The word feels foreign in your ears. Comfort, like warm socks or real tea. Something from another life. Days become weeks. The war doesn't stop. It just continues. Like mud, like rot. You keep writing, but the tone has shifted. There's no more pretending. No more censoring your thoughts to make them sound braver than they are. Clara, if this reaches you, know that I carried your smile through every shell and shadow. The war is a terrible beast, but your memory keeps the monsters at bay. I don't know what waits beyond this mud and wire, but I hope it's peace. I love you more than words can hold. You seal that one by hand, tuck it into your jacket, close to your heart, just in case. Then, an evening like any other. Gray sky, a few birds circling like they're lost. Your stomach aching from something unenviable. Henry returns. They found it, he says, breathless. The letter tin. A soldier in the London archive. You read your name. They're planning to preserve it, maybe publish it. You stare at him, at the horizon behind him, at the sky that doesn't seem to move anymore. The idea that your words, Not your uniform, not your boots, not your rifle, but your words might survive you? It's almost too much to hold. Historians will argue later. They always do. Some will say your letters offer a snapshot, a sanitized version of war, polished for posterity. Others will claim they capture the very soul of it, a heartbeat buried in the mud that still thumps when read. But you're not thinking of any of that now. To you, these aren't history. They're not relics. They're thread, thin and stubborn, connecting you to Clara, to hope, to the version of yourself that existed before all of this. That night, under stars that don't blink, you write your final letter. The paper is dry, the pencil worn, but your hand is steady. Clara, I'm not sure what tomorrow brings, but I want you to know, in the darkest trenches, your light never faded. Even if I don't make it back, these words are my last embrace. My final promise. Hold on to hope for both of us. You pause for a moment after writing those last words, pencil hovering just above the paper. The candle beside you flickers low, its stub of flame stretching like it's trying to reach for something it can't quite touch. You read the letter again, not to edit it, not to improve it, but to remember. Every word feels like a breath. Every line like the echo of a heartbeat you're afraid you might forget. You fold it carefully, slowly, as if the way you crease the paper somehow matters more than anything else in the world right now. Then with both hands, you press it to your chest, right over your heart, where it stays for a long, still moment. You close your eyes. This letter is your last defense, your last gift, your last thread. Henry had found a small tin 2 days ago, hidden beneath broken timber, likely once used for tobacco or boiled sweets. It's dented but dry inside, and the lid still closes tight. You nestle the letter within it like placing a seed into the soil, hoping, somehow, it will grow into something someone else can hold one day. Smaller than the last, but it will do. You snap it shut, seal it with a wrap of cloth, and tuck it into the earth behind your bunk, beneath a slat of broken duckboard, like a secret only the mud will understand. The war doesn't end with a trumpet, no white flag, no sudden sun bursting through clouds. It doesn't end like the stories say. There is no great roar of relief, no line in the sky marking before and after. It just slips away, quietly, strangely, like fog dissolving in morning light. First the guns fall silent, a silence so loud it startles you awake. Then the orders stop coming. No advance, no retreat, just waiting. Then the officers stop looking you in the eye. Then someone whispers, "It's over." And no one quite believes it, not at first. One morning, you wake up, and it's quieter than usual, not just around you, but inside you. No shell fire in your ears, no dread curled in your gut, only birdsong, uninterrupted. And it stays that way. You breathe in, and it doesn't taste like smoke. You look at the sky, and it isn't angry. You sit still, and don't flinch. Years pass. The trenches collapse, swallowed by the same earth they once scurred. Barbed wire rusts, helmet straps rot, and rifles turn to dust. But the earth remembers. The poppies bloom again in spring, red as blood, soft as breath. Grass grows over no man's land. Trees stretch where nothing dared grow. Children walk where shells once screamed. They chase dragonflies across fields where names were once whispered in final gasps. And one day, long after the war is over, long after you are a name carved into stone, and the world has marched forward, a farmer's plow catches something sharp beneath the thawing soil and the song. He stops, digs. It's a rusted tin, flat, small, edges curled with age. Inside, a letter, still folded, still legible, still alive. The ink faded but strong, the words brittle but breathing. The paper carries a scent of earth and rain and iron. But the message is clear. Even if I don't make it back, these words are my last embrace. It passes from hand to hand, first a local historian, then a museum curator, then a young girl on a school trip who reads it aloud, voice trembling. The story unfolds, of a soldier, of a boy, of a love letter never delivered, but never lost. And for whoever reads it, whether historian, stranger, descendant, it tells not just of war, but of love, not just of death, but of devotion, not just of battles, but of belief, in words, in memory, in the thread that never broke, It tells the story of a boy with muddy boots and lice in his collar, and a letter tucked over his heart who refused to forget what made him human. Chapter 7. The morning air bites sharper than usual as you trudge through the trench. It's the kind of cold that seeps through wool and bone alike, curling into your lungs and settling like a second skin. Around you, the trench groans and creaks, wooden beams swollen with wet, barbed wire laced with frost like cruel tinsel. You taste the metal in the air again, iron, rust, fear. It clings to everything. Even silence feels sharp here. It's been weeks since Henry found the tin, since your words were plucked from the mud like some strange, fragile artifact. But the war hasn't changed. It still smells like blood and wet soil, still sounds like distant thunder with teeth, still feels like waiting for something you can't name. Around you, the men move in a half-conscious rhythm, not marching so much as enduring. Ghosts in mud-caked boots. Their faces hold stories like scars, most of which will never be told, not properly, not out loud. You think about your own story, tucked safely away in that small, dented tin, letters that have outlived artillery, frostbite, disease, and dread. Words written in fear and love and longing, words that might one day be enough. For now they're still yours. Ever notice how the rats run faster when the officers show up? Fig grumbles as he slides past you in the duckboard path, wiping at his forehead despite the chill. His breath clouds the air, but sweat still gleams on his brow, like they've got appointments somewhere, important ones. You snort a laugh, trying to make rank, maybe. Lieutenant Whiskers of the 3rd Rat Division. Fig squints, mock serious. Oh no, he's already colonel. Been promoted for dragging biscuit tins out of the quartermaster's hut. You both laugh, the sound low and short-lived, but real. War breeds its own kind of humor. Dark, absurd, absolutely necessary. Like the time a private swore his lice had started coordinating. Claimed they were organizing by sleeve region. The Cuff Brigade, he called them, planning a full-scale invasion. You're telling me there's a louse labor strike? You asked at the time, stifling laughter. Exactly, Fig had replied, eyes wide. They're demanding better rations and boot access, and weekends off. You smile at the memory. Here, smiles are currency. As valuable as matches, socks, and letters from home, maybe more. The trench has developed a strange rhythm, a dance of tedium and terror. Shell bursts, whispers, latrine breaks, the sound of tea sloshing in dented tins, snores, prayers, someone humming a hymn out of tune. You find comfort in the routines, even in their strangeness. They're the shape of normal, even if they don't make sense. Writing is part of that. It's more than habit now, it's your rebellion, your ritual, your lifeline. Historians, those distant, clean-handed figures from a future you might never see, argue whether letters like yours really capture the essence of the war, whether a few pages of ink can carry something as massive and monstrous as this. But you know the truth. It's the little stories that matter. The jokes, the tin of stolen jam passed down the trench, the phantom voice that whispers at night near the mortar nest. Those are the pieces of the war no history book can hold. And for you, the letters are everything. One afternoon, while catching a rare break behind the line, a rumor spreads like trench fever. Apparently, a soldier raiding an abandoned enemy dugout found a jar of crocodile dung-based sunscreen. You blinked when you heard it. Fig grinned wide. Even war has its beauty treatments, mate. Can't go into no man's land with dry skin. You tried to imagine it. A half-mad soldier, face smeared in greenish paste, charging through the mud looking like a bog creature. Maybe even posing under fire. It made you laugh, really laugh, and for a while it felt like sunlight in your ribs. That evening you returned to the whispering corner. It hasn't spoken in weeks. But still, the memory of its voice lingers like fog in your mind. A chill just below the skin. You don't know if it was real, if it is real, but sometimes you catch yourself listening for it anyway, like an itch in the silence. You sit down with your back to the wooden slats, tin in your pocket, fingers cold and stained with ink. You write again. My dearest, tonight the trench feels endless, a maze of mud and memory. But I hold on to your laughter like a lifeline. They say the ground here holds secrets, whispers from the ones who came before. Maybe one day these letters will be found, and my voice will join theirs. Until then, I write to keep myself alive. Just as you set the pencil down, the shelling begins. A sudden scream of steel in the distance, then impact, close. The trench shudders like a wounded beast. Earth rains down. You duck, Arms over your head, ears ringing, mouth full of dirt. You think of Clara. You always do in those moments between breath and oblivion. When the dust clears, the trench is still standing. So are you. You exhale slowly, lungs shaking. The war has taken another bite, but not enough. You glance at the tin in your pocket. It's warm from your body, nestled over your heart. Still here? Still safe. Still yours. You think of all the others who never wrote, or who wrote and lost everything, or whose letters were never found. You wonder if the mud remembers their stories, if the trench dreams in dead languages, if anyone, anywhere, will ever read their names aloud again. But your letters, your stubborn, scribbled words, have outlasted thunder and fire. They resist forgetting. Each word, a whisper, a breath, a heartbeat. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine Clara sitting by the window, tea in hand, reading your letters one by one. Maybe there's rain on the glass. Maybe she smiles through tears. You picture her lips moving as she reads, hearing you even across the silence. It makes the ache worth it. You chuckle softly despite the tremble in your hands. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen, you murmur to yourself. Maybe this war is madness, but it's also moments like this, moments that feel real, that feel human. Tiny rebellions against despair. You pull the tin close, press it to your chest like armor, then reach for your pencil again. Because you're not finished. Not yet. Chapter 8. Mud clings to your boots like a second skin as you slog through the trench system's winding corridors. It's been raining for what feels like a century, an endless, spiteful drizzle that turns every surface into sludge and every breath into mist. The sky above is a vast sheet of lead, pressing low against the world, squeezing out all the color. Your hands are numb from the cold, but you clutch the tin of letters with quiet determination. The battered little box has become something more than metal and paper. It's your compass, your anchor, a defiance pressed into shape and sealed shut. You glance up to see Fig ahead of you, trudging forward, his shoulders hunched beneath his soaked coat. "Watch your step," he calls, voice muffled beneath the drizzle. "Last week, I lost a boot to a mud pit that swallowed a whole mule." You grin despite yourself, shifting your rifle and sidestepping a puddle that could easily double as a trench-side lake. The mud here doesn't just cling, it pulls, as if it wants to absorb you into its ancient, hungry belly and forget you were ever a name, a voice, a heartbeat. You keep walking. Eventually, you find shelter in an abandoned dugout. The roof still holds, mostly. The inside smells of mold, smoke, and something else, something faint and human. The remnants of laughter, maybe, or fear. You light a stub of candle from your kit, the flame flickering weakly against the dark, and settle into a corner. There's a hollow sort of peace in these quiet places. Even the war seems to breathe slower here. You pull out your tin. Knees drawn up, you set it in your lap and open it with care, like it might shatter from handling. Inside, letters. So many now, folded neatly, some smudged, some written during shell fire, others beneath the half-light of a dying candle. They are crooked, imperfect, often stained with mud or blood or tears, but they are yours. You read through them like a priest leafing through old scripture, not for grammar or style, but for memory, for reminders of who you were when you wrote them. There's one about Clara's voice in the kitchen, another about rain on a London window, one you barely remember writing, where you described a dream of walking again on dry ground. No boots, no orders, just grass under your feet and sunlight on your skin. You read them not to escape, but to remember why you're here, why you keep writing. Historians someday will ask the same old questions. Did the soldiers write for themselves, or for the ones waiting at home? You think, maybe it's both. Maybe letters are the only way to shout across the abyss and believe someone's listening. Maybe they're the only real thing left. You hear a scuffle and glance toward the far wall, just a rat bolting between shadows. Bold little bastard, like they all are. It's amazing, really, how confident they've become, as if they own the trenches now and you're just squatters in their domain. You smile wryly. "Remind me to unionize those little buggers," you mutter. Somewhere in the shadows, the rat chitters as if in agreement. By the time the sun begins to die behind the horizon, casting strange gold streaks through the gaps in the trench roof, you've begun another letter. The words come slower now, not for lack of feeling, but because they carry more weight. You know what this place does to memory, how it erodes the soft things first, laughter, warmth, the way someone's name sounds when whispered. So you hold those things tighter when you write. "My dearest Clara, the rain never seems to stop here. It's as if the heavens themselves are mourning, weeping for the ones who won't be remembered. And yet, in all this gray, your memory shines, like a candle flickering stubbornly against the wind. I hold on to that light. I need that light. It keeps the ghosts away. You pause, let the ink dry, dip the nib again, your hands trembling just a little. I hope this letter finds you. If not, then let it be a testament that I never stopped hoping. I never stopped believing in a world where we find each other again. The trench is quieter than usual that night. Even the artillery seems to be resting. Just a few cracks on the horizon, like someone shifting furniture far away. You sit in the dugout, candle almost gone, the tin resting against your chest like a heartbeat you're trying to match. And you wonder what will happen to these letters. Maybe you'll carry them home. Maybe someone else will. Maybe they'll lie buried for years, forgotten, preserved in the stubborn mud of the song. But it doesn't matter, because they're written. That's the point. Later, Fig stumbles into the dugout, his boots squelching with each step, the mud dripping from his coat like slow rain. He shakes his head as if trying to shrug off the weight of the day, then wipes his face with a sleeve that's seen better hours. His eyes catch the flickering candlelight and land on you and the tin of letters resting on your knees. You still scribbling those poems to your girl? He asks, a half-smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, though the exhaustion in his voice betrays the usual rough humor. You glance up, shaking your head softly, a tired smile playing on your lips. They're not poems, you say quietly. They're letters, real words meant for real people. Fig shrugs and smirks, settling down beside you on the damp floorboards. Same thing in the end, words that outlive us, pieces of us left behind when the mud swallows the rest. He pulls out a battered tin from inside his coat, a tin of stale biscuits, cracked and crumbly from months buried in his pocket. He offers one to you, and you take it gratefully, biting down on something gritty and dry, tasting faintly of sawdust and the faintest hint of sugar. It's warm against the chill, a small comfort in a world gone cold. For a long moment you sit in silence, two muddy, worn men sharing a fragile warmth amid the gloom. The candle's flame flickers low, casting long shadows that dance on the walls, shadows shaped like ghosts and memories. Around you, the night hums softly, the distant thunder of artillery and muted lullaby. Fig breaks the silence, voice low and rough. You ever think about what happens to these letters? If they'll ever reach her? Or if they just rot away with us? You think about that, eyes fixed on the tin. I don't know. Maybe they're just for me, to remind me who I am when everything else is trying to erase it. Fig nods slowly, understanding. Still, it's something, isn't it? Holding on. Writing down what matters. In the end, that's what keeps us from disappearing. The candle guttering, the world outside drenched in dark, you feel a strange flicker of hope, not the blaring kind, but a small, steady ember that refuses to die. That night, as you finally drift into uneasy sleep, the war fades away, not with explosions or cries, but with a strange, quiet vision. You dream of a hand, not muddy, not worn, but clean and steady, reaching deep into the wet earth. Fingers close gently around the tin, lifting it with care, as if it holds the weight of all the lost stories beneath the soil. The mud parts like a curtain, and suddenly the tin sits in sunlight, behind a polished glass case. You see your letter displayed, yellow but legible, held safe for a world far beyond these trenches. A small plaque beneath reads, "Found near the Somme, unsent, undelivered, unforgotten." You see faces leaning in to read the words, historians, strangers, a child tracing the faded ink with wide eyes. They're listening. They're remembering. Not just the war, but you. You wake before dawn, heart pounding like the distant drum of artillery. The air in the dugout feels thicker now, charged with something fragile and fierce. You reach for your pen and paper, the resolve burning brighter than the candle's final flicker. Because some dreams are worth chasing, even in the mud. And so you write. Chapter 9. The dawn creeps in slow and pale, filtering through the tangled maze of barbed wire and broken wood like a hesitant visitor, uncertain if it belongs in this shattered place. The sky is a muted gray, stretching endlessly, the sun just a faint glow behind thick clouds. You lie awake on the cold, hard ground, muscles aching from the day before, aching from the endless tension and the weight of constant vigilance. Rest here is always brief, borrowed from a world that doesn't pause for dreams. Around you, the trench begins to stir. The low murmur of soldiers waking, preparing, and steeling themselves for another day seeps into the silence. The ritual of survival is in full motion. boots scraping mud, rifles being checked and rechecked, whispered prayers or quiet curses exchanged between weary men. You tuck the tin of letters securely beneath your coat, your fingers curling around it like it's the only thing anchoring you to who you are amid the chaos. This small, battered container holds your soul in folded paper, fragments of a life you're desperate not to lose. It's more than a keepsake. It's a lifeline. There's talk among the men, hushed but charged with a mixture of dread and bitter hope. The brass have promised a big offensive, a push that might finally break the deadlock or drown more of you in blood and mud. It's the kind of operation that leaves everyone wondering if the generals have learned anything at all from the countless lives already lost. Maybe this time, the generals will get it right, Fig mutters, lighting a cigarette. The glow briefly illuminates his face, tired but defiant. The smoke curls upward, a weary halo that seems to mock the dawn. You want to believe him. You want to believe in anything that doesn't smell like fear and mud and exhaustion. You clutch the tin tighter, drawing a little strength from the small weight against your chest. Your mind drifts back to the letters you've written, the ones filled with quiet hope, memories, and dreams of Clara's laughter. Strange to think that these words, penned amid the chaos and horror, might one day reach someone far from this hellish landscape, someone who never lived through the ceaseless thunder of artillery and the endless mud. Historians still argue, sometimes heatedly, whether personal letters like these capture the true breadth of the Great War or if they merely offer a small glimpse through a narrow keyhole. But you know better. These letters hold a raw, unfiltered truth, a pulse beating with fear, love, and the will to survive. A peculiar moment breaks the heavy tension. A fellow soldier begins recounting a story about Cher Amy, the famous carrier pigeon who braved enemy fire to save a battalion. You all laugh at the image of a tiny bird wearing a medal, a miniature helmet perched crookedly on its head. It's like the smallest soldier with the biggest courage, someone says. You nod, the thought warming you. Sometimes it's the smallest acts, those whispered words, a letter folded with care, a bird flying through gunfire, that make the greatest difference. The hours drag on, the weight of what tomorrow might bring settling deep into your bones. During a rare lull, you find yourself scribbling another letter, your pen trembling as the words pour out, tangled between fear and longing. Clara, tomorrow we march into the unknown. The weight of what might come presses hard on my chest. But I carry your smile like armor. If I fall, know that my last thought will be of you, the light guiding me home. You fold the paper carefully, heart pounding like the distant drums of war. As night descends, the trench is swallowed by shadows. You sit alone for a moment, fingers tracing the dents and scratches on the tin, the scars of battles endured. It's more than a container. It's a keeper of memories, a silent witness to the war fought both outside in the mud and inside your soul. You wonder what stories the future will tell about this war, about the men who lived and died here, whose voices were lost in the roar. And you hope with everything that remains inside you that your voice, your letters will be among those remembered. Because in the end, it's not just about battles won or lost. It's about holding on to what made you human. The hope, the love, the words that refuse to be silenced. You tuck the letter away in the tin, ready to face whatever comes next. Chapter 10. The dawn breaks with a brittle chill that cuts through your clothes like a knife, sinking deep into your bones, making your joints ache before the day has even begun. The air is crisp and biting, the kind of cold that gnaws at your skin and steals your breath in shallow gasps. The trench is unusually silent, no chatter, no distant gunfire, just a heavy, almost suffocating quiet. It's the kind of silence that presses on your chest, the quiet that whispers of the storm waiting to break. You adjust your helmet again, fingers trembling despite the countless times you've done this before. The weight of your gear feels heavier this morning, but the tin of letters, tucked tightly in your breast pocket, is an anchor in a world that's spun out of control. That small, battered tin holds more than just folded paper. It holds your hopes, your fears, your heart. Orders come down the line swiftly, urgent, and final. Prepare for the offensive. The words hang in the stale morning air, thick with dread and determination, as if the very trenches themselves are holding their breath. You glance sideways at Fig, whose usual sarcastic grin is gone, replaced by a grim set to his jaw and eyes shadowed with quiet resolve. "This is it," he says softly, voice low but steady. "No more playing hide and seek with death." You nod, swallowing the lump rising in your throat. Fear coils tightly in your belly, but you force it down. The faces around you reflect the same tension, the same fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this push will be different. Your mind flits to Clara, to the letters you've written and those you never dared send. You picture her face, warm, alive, untouched by the mud and smoke of this war. The thought is a fragile thread pulling you through the madness. The trenches stir with the familiar, frantic movements. Soldiers checking rifles and bayonets, fastening belts and helmets, whispering hurried prayers or silent goodbyes. You take a deep, steadying breath, the metallic tang of fear and anticipation filling your lungs like smoke. Historians still argue, some with quiet scholarship, others with heated debate, whether these massive offensives were necessary acts of courage or tragic, catastrophic miscalculations. Were they bold strokes of strategy or mere wasteful slaughter? Countless lives sacrificed on the altar of ambition and pride. These questions echo through time like distant artillery fire, impossible to answer fully. But in this moment, none of it matters. The grand debates, the maps and plans, the post-war analyses, none can reach the mud beneath your nails or the weight in your chest. Now all that counts is surviving the next step, the next breath, the next heartbeat. You edge forward, climbing over the lip of the trench with slow, careful movements, each footfall heavy and deliberate. The pale, fragile morning light is weak against the gray sky, but it casts a faint glow on the tangled barbed wire ahead. Among the twisted metal, a small pigeon flutters, wings beating desperately, feathers ruffled and dirt streaked. It's no larger than your hand, but it carries the spirit of every messenger who risked everything to deliver hope amid the carnage. You smile through the grime and exhaustion, a brief flicker of warmth in a cold, relentless world. That tiny bird, so fragile yet fearless, embodies something rare here, hope. Maybe it's foolish, even absurd, to pin your fragile hope on a bird. Yet in this endless war, hope is as scarce and precious as clean water or a dry blanket, and you'll clutch it wherever you find it, even in the flutter of a wing. Then, piercing the cold morning air like a sudden knife, the whistle blows, sharp, unforgiving. It slices through the heavy silence, sending a jolt of adrenaline racing down your spine. The world erupts around you in thunder and flame. The earth trembles beneath your boots as shells explode, throwing mud and debris high into the air. You charge forward, heart pounding a fierce rhythm in your ears, lungs burning with the raw effort, muscles screaming in protest. But you don't stop, you can't. You're propelled by something deeper than mere fear, by love, by memory, by a stubborn, fierce will to survive. Amid the chaos, your fingers curl tightly around the tin tucked beneath your coat, the last tangible piece of home you carry with you through the storm. Hours later, the battle's fury begins to ebb. Smoke curls upward in lazy spirals as the guns fall silent. You find yourself alone, body aching and bruised, uniform torn and stained with mud and blood. You stand in the hollow of a shattered shell crater, the ground all around you a scared and broken landscape. The acrid scent of gunpowder hangs thick in the air, mixing with the raw, wet earth torn open by violence. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, chest heaving, hands trembling as you reach for your final letter, the one you wrote just before the attack, filled with hope and fear and love. The paper is creased and smudged, worn by sweat and dirt, but the ink remains clear, words etched like a lifeline. You read aloud, voice trembling yet fierce, each word carrying the weight of your soul. Clara, if this is my final letter, know that my love for you was stronger than the guns, brighter than the darkest night. Carry me in your heart as I carry you in mine. The sun sinks low, bleeding red and gold across the horizon, as if the sky itself were wounded. Its vibrant hues spilling out like molten fire over a battlefield scarred beyond repair. Long shadows stretch and twist, crawling slowly over the shattered earth, turning every crater and twisted wire into a stark silhouette of ruin. The sky's beauty feels painfully out of place here, an almost cruel contrast to the devastation that stains the land below. It's a fragile, fleeting moment of peace, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the world turns on, unaware and indifferent. You close your eyes, breathing in the cool air tinged with smoke and earth. The fading warmth of the sun seeps into your bruised skin, a quiet balm against the cold that no uniform or trench can fully keep at bay. For a moment you are elsewhere, beyond this tangled nightmare of mud and metal, imagining a world where these letters will one day find their way home, slipping through hands that will hold them gently, reading words soaked in hope and fear and love. In that imagined world, love outlasts the thunder of guns. It endures beyond the barbed wire and blasted fields, whispering across generations. It is a light that refuses to be extinguished, a promise inked in trembling script on fragile paper. For now, you are many things. A soldier, battered and worn, a writer capturing moments lost to history. a lover holding on to the thread of something human amidst the madness. And your story, etched in ink and mud, carried quietly across time, waits patiently to be found. It lingers in the silence between gunfire and the spaces left by loss, ready to speak when the world is ready to listen. Chapter 11. The world feels suspended in a strange, fragile quiet, as if the trenches themselves are holding their breath after the storm of the offensive. Around you, the shattered remnants of battle lie scattered. Broken rifles snap like twigs, helmets dented and cracked, and the faint, lingering scent of smoke mingling with the damp earth. The mud beneath your boots seems heavier, as if soaked with the sorrow of fallen comrades. You are exhausted, every bone aches, your body weary from the relentless grind. Yet through the fatigue, your fingers close tightly around the tin, a talisman heavier than metal, lighter than hope. It is your anchor, your secret refuge. You settle down in a shallow dugout carved from the earth, the quiet pressing in like the weight of the world itself. For a moment, you allow yourself to sink into the stillness, the silence wrapping around you like a fragile veil. With careful hands, you pull out the tin and pry it open. Inside lies a fragile archive, letters folded with care, some edges frayed, ink smeared by mud or rain, others bearing the faintest stains of tears you've long since forgotten. Each page is a thread connecting you to a life that feels both distant and unbearably close. You trace the looping handwriting of your past self, the familiar curves and lines like echoes from another world. Funny Fig's voice breaks the silence as he settles beside you, his boots squelching in the mud. How these little scraps of paper can outlast bullets and bombs. You nod slowly. He's right. These letters are more than ink and paper. They are lifelines, whispers of humanity that refuse to be buried beneath the chaos. The night deepens and the cold creeps in, stars dim behind heavy clouds, distant and indifferent. You dip your pen into the ink, a scratch of nib on paper, a small rebellion against the darkness. Clara, you write, the war changes everything, yet my love remains constant. In these moments between shellfire and silence, it is your face I see. If fate allows, these letters will find you carrying my heart across the miles. Historians still debate whether soldiers' letters softened or sharpened the brutal realities of war for those back home. You wonder if your words will someday be read by strangers, distant descendants poring over fragments of your life, fragments of fear, love, and hope. The thought is both humbling and strange, that your story could outlive you, etched forever in fragile paper. A sudden knock at the entrance pulls you from your reverie. An officer steps in, his eyes weary but kind beneath the shadow of his helmet. He looks at the tin, then at you, his expression unreadable. Your letters, he says quietly, they've been collected. There's talk of preserving them, maybe even sharing them with the world. Surprise blooms inside you, a strange mixture of pride, fear, and hope swirling in your chest. You hesitate, then hand over the tin, feeling the weight shift from your hands to his, and somehow from your heart to the future. Before the tin is sealed and labeled, you carefully take one final piece of paper, the edges worn and creased from countless folds. Your hand trembles slightly as you write, each word weighted with the hope and sorrow that have carried you through this endless nightmare. To those who find this, remember us not as numbers, but as people, as dreamers, lovers, survivors. You fold the note delicately and tuck it inside the tin alongside the others. It feels like a small act of defiance, an insistence that your story, and the stories of those who fought beside you, will live on beyond the mud and blood. That beneath the uniform, beneath the shattered helmets and worn boots, there were hearts that beat fiercely with love and courage. The tin is closed, its seal a promise and a prayer. You watch as the officer places it gently among other precious keepsakes, destined for a world far removed from the trenches, where your words may one day be read with reverence and understanding. The night deepens around you, the cold earth pressing against your back as you lie down beneath a sky vast and unfathomable. Above, the stars struggle to pierce the thick veil of clouds, their distant light of fragile hope shimmering across the darkness. The war has stolen so much, friends swallowed by the earth, years carved away like scars, innocence shattered by the roar of guns. Yet in this heavy silence, you feel the quiet power of stories, etched in ink and mud, waiting patiently to be unearthed. You close your eyes, letting the stillness seep into your bones. The distant crackle of gunfire is replaced by the soft whisper of the wind through barbed wire, carrying with it a faint promise that these words, your words, will survive. Tomorrow is uncertain, the future cloaked in shadows as deep as the trenches themselves. But for now, in this fleeting moment suspended between dusk and dawn, you rest. Chapter 12. The trench feels eerily empty this morning. The usual clatter of boots and whispered conversations has been swallowed by a tense, oppressive silence. It's as if the earth itself holds its breath, waiting. The war grinds on, relentless, unyielding. But today, something intangible shifts in the air, a fragile pause between storms. You clutch the tin tightly, its worn surface cold against your palm, a fragile container of stories too delicate to be lost in the brutality around you. Though it's been entrusted to the officers for safekeeping, the weight of it still settles heavy in your chest, a reminder of everything that survives beyond the violence. Stepping carefully through the muck, you wander toward the edge of the trench. Your eyes trace the scared landscape, shell craters gouged deep into the earth like jagged wounds, barbed wire tangled and twisted like broken promises that stretch endlessly over the no man's land. Above, the sun struggles to pierce the thick, low-hanging clouds, casting long shadows that stretch like restless ghosts across the mud. Fig joins you, leaning wearily against the trench wall. His usual smirk is muted, replaced by a fatigue that etches lines deeper into his face. Ever wonder how this mess will look 100 years from now? He asks, voice rough with exhaustion. Will anyone care about us, or will we just be dust, buried and forgotten? You shrug, eyes fixed on the distant horizon where earth and sky blur into a hazy line. Maybe that's what these letters are for, you say softly. Proof that we were here, that we mattered. You reach into your coat and draw out the tin once more. Its familiar weight grounds you. Opening it carefully, you leaf through the pages of your letters, each one a lifeline cast across the abyss. A bridge connecting this broken world with a past that still feels achingly close. Clara, you whisper, voice almost lost in the stillness. I hope you can feel me in these words, across the miles and the years. The war has a cruel way of teaching you to cherish the smallest moments. A shared joke whispered in the dark, the crumpled paper of a letter, or the sudden warmth of a single sunbeam breaking through the suffocating gray clouds. Historians still debate the true impact of these trench diaries and letters. Were they merely personal catharses, escapes from a horror too great to bear? Or did they help shape how the world remembers the soldiers' stories, adding flesh and blood to cold facts and statistics? Either way, these letters endure. Suddenly, a distant blast shatters the fragile silence. The earth trembles beneath your feet, dust and debris settling like ash on your skin. You steady yourself, heart pounding fiercely, instinctively pulling the tin closer, as if it can shield you from the chaos. In moments like this, the letters feel more precious than ever, reminders that even in the heart of destruction, there remains a pulse of humanity, stubborn and unyielding. That night, the trench is cloaked in darkness, save for the flickering glow of a dying candle perched precariously on a cracked wooden crate. The weak flame casts dancing shadows on the damp walls, making the space feel both intimate and painfully fragile. Around you, the distant rumble of artillery is a low, haunting lullaby, reminding you that the war never truly sleeps. You pull out a fresh sheet of paper, its rough surface cool beneath your fingers. Your pen hesitates for a moment, hovering over the page as the weight of everything you've seen, felt, and feared settles heavily on your shoulders. The ink flows slowly, each word a deliberate act of defiance against the chaos surrounding you, a fragile thread of hope woven through exhaustion and despair. My love, you write, the words forming a lifeline in the dim light. The war tests every part of us, our bodies, our minds, our spirits. It drags us through mud and fire, breaks us down and builds us up in the same breath. Your hand trembles slightly, not from cold, but from the flood of emotions, fear, longing, love, that swell inside you. You press on, pouring your heart into the letter, determined that these words will carry something enduring beyond the thunder of guns. But it cannot touch what we share. These letters are my promise, that no matter what happens, you will always be with me. You pause, the candle's flame flickering as a soft breeze slips through a crack in the trench wall. For a moment, the world feels suspended, a breath held between moments of violence and silence. Carefully, you fold the paper along its creases, the edges worn but treasured. The letter slips into the tin, joining the others like pieces of your soul locked away against time. You close the lid with deliberate care, the soft click a small but powerful act of preservation. Tucking the tin close to your chest beneath your coat, you feel a strange peace settle over you, fragile and fleeting, but real. Outside, the war rages on, the night filled with distant echoes of conflict. But inside you, a quiet flame burns steady, a stubborn light that no shell, no bullet, no despair can snuff out. You close your eyes, taking a deep, steadying breath. The cold air fills your lungs, grounding you. For now, hope is your shield, love your anchor. Whatever tomorrow holds, you are ready to face it. Chapter 13. You wake to the distant rumble of artillery, a low, unrelenting growl that feels as constant as your own heartbeat. It's a sound you've learned to live with, a grim reminder that peace is a stranger in this broken world. The trench stirs around you, the sharp click of rifles being loaded, hurried footsteps muffled by mud, voices exchanging hurried orders and quiet reassurances. You cradle the tin close to your chest, its cold metal pressing against your worn uniform like a heartbeat of its own. It's small, unassuming, but inside, it holds your entire world. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, burnt wood, and something metallic, smells that have become as familiar to you as the feel of the mud between your fingers. It's the smell of danger, but also survival of a battlefield that refuses to forget. Today, the orders come down sharp and clear, risky reconnaissance mission into no man's land. Your stomach tightens as you exchange a glance with Figure. His usual grin is gone, replaced by a calm that feels like a mask carefully worn over deeper worry. You ready? He asks, adjusting the straps on his gear. You nod, though inside you feel anything but ready. Fear and determination fight for space in your chest. Moving through the labyrinth of trenches and into the shattered wasteland of no man's land, every step feels heavy with uncertainty. The cracked earth beneath your boots, the twisted barbed wire, everything speaks of destruction and death. But your thoughts keep drifting back to the tin and the letters tucked inside, words that refuse to be erased by shells or time. They are a secret rebellion against the war's relentless hunger, each sentence a thread that ties you back to Clara, to a life that sometimes feels like a distant, fragile dream. Historians argue endlessly about the power of these personal stories, were letters from the front merely escapes for soldiers or raw truths that revealed the war's brutal reality better than any official dispatch. For you, they are both. A sanctuary, a testimony. Suddenly, movement catches your eye. A stray dog, thin and dirt-caked, its ribs visible beneath its matted fur. Its bright eyes meet yours for a moment, filled with a wild intelligence and unexpected hope. The dog lingers just long enough to remind you that even here, amidst the ruin, small sparks of kindness and life persist. The moment with the stray dog lingers in your mind like a fragile thread of light. For a brief second, amid the shattered landscape and the endless echo of gunfire, you glimpse something untouched by war, a living spark of resilience and unexpected kindness. Then, as silently as it appeared, the dog slips away into the fog and mud, leaving you with a quiet sense of connection to a world beyond this endless battle. You press onward, each step weighed down by exhaustion and the heavy cloak of responsibility. Back in the trench, the adrenaline of the mission slowly ebbs away, leaving you raw and exposed to the cold biting at your skin. The chatter and clatter of the day have died down. The men are scattered, some tending wounds, others lost in thought. You settle yourself in a small, shadowed nook, fingers trembling as you pull out pen and paper. The dim glow of a lantern flickers nearby, casting long, wavering shadows on the trench walls. The silence around you feels fragile, almost sacred, a brief respite in a world shattered by chaos. Your hand moves slowly, deliberately, the ink bleeding your thoughts onto the page. Clara, today I saw a glimpse of the world beyond the war, a stray dog, a patch of sky between the clouds. It reminded me that life persists, even here. These letters carry my hope, my love, my will to return to you. Each word is a small rebellion against the darkness, a quiet promise to yourself and to her. You fold the letter carefully, smoothing the creases, then place it gently into the tin, the precious vessel holding the fragments of your heart. Night falls with a cold hush, wrapping the trench in darkness and silence. The stars above are faint pinpricks behind heavy clouds, distant and unreachable. You sit alone, the open tin beside you, letters shifting softly like fragile wings caught in a gentle breeze. In the stillness, your thoughts turn to Clara. Will she ever read these words? Will they survive the war's fury to speak of love, loss, and resilience? Will they tell the story not just of a soldier, but of a man who refused to let the war silence his soul? Because sometimes you realize hope is the most powerful weapon of all. Chapter 14. The trench feels colder now than it ever did before. The dampness seeps not only from the thick mud that clings to your boots, but from the very air around you, chilling bones and spirit alike. Every morning, you wake to the same dull gray sky, heavy with the promise of rain that never seems to come, or sometimes does, turning the trench into a river of muck and misery. You pull your coat tighter, the fabric thin against the biting cold, but no garment can protect you from the frost that has settled inside your chest. It's a coldness born of waiting, of endless hours filled with nothing but the distant crackle of gunfire and the whispering winds. Your fingers, stiff and numb, find the familiar shape of the small tin nestled beneath your coat, a fragile vessel for your words, your heart, your lifeline to a world far beyond this endless war. It weighs heavier each day, not in pounds, but in memories and silent prayers. You don't write as often as you once did, not because you have less to say, but because hope has thinned to a fragile thread, and the silence around you has grown thick. You wonder if these letters will ever find Clara's hands, or if they will simply be swallowed by the mud and chaos, lost like so many dreams buried in this endless trench. Yet still you write. The ritual of dipping your pen into the ink, of pressing it onto the rough paper, is a quiet act of defiance. Each word is a small beacon of light in a world that seems swallowed by shadow. The letters are more than messages. They are fragments of your soul, scattered across time and distance. Fig, your closest companion in this forsaken place, cracks jokes in the dim light of the evening, his humor as dry as the dust that clings to the walls of the trench. I should start writing letters to the rats, he says with a crooked grin. They're the only ones here who've stuck around long enough to appreciate my sarcasm. You laugh, the sound hollow and brittle, but laughter is precious here. Its currency, spent sparingly but treasured beyond measure. You recall with a strange mix of disbelief and amusement the stories that float through the camp like smoke, tales so absurd that they almost seem to mock the grim reality. One particularly strange yarn is about soldiers using crocodile dung as sunscreen. No one is quite sure if it's fact or fiction. Historians still debate it, weighing it as a blend of desperate innovation and dark humor. Perhaps it was just a rumor, born from the soldiers' desperate need to make sense of their suffering or to find a moment of levity in the unrelenting horror. Whatever the truth, these stories, half true, half myth, offer brief reprieves, small escapes from the suffocating gray that envelops everything. One afternoon, you find yourself sitting in a quiet corner of the trench, the wind whispering faintly over the mud and barbed wire. The scent of wildflowers drifts on the breeze, fragile, elusive, almost mocking in its beauty. It's a cruel reminder of the life beyond this war, a life full of warmth, laughter, and Clara's gentle smile. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the scent fill your senses, a bittersweet balm on a weary soul. Slowly, your hands reach for the tin. The metal is cold and rough, scarred from months of wear, yet it holds a precious treasure inside. The letters you have written. Each one is a snapshot of your hope and despair, your fears and dreams. The edges are worn, the ink sometimes smudged by rain or tears, but each letter is a lifeline, a testament to love and resilience. With trembling hands, you pull out a fresh sheet of paper and begin to write again. This time, your words come softer, slower, but with a quiet strength that you did not know you still possessed. Clara, you write, if these letters find their way to you, know that I carry you in my heart through every dark and lonely hour. This war may try to break us, to strip away everything we hold dear, but it cannot touch the bond we share. Hold on to our love as fiercely as I hold on to the hope of coming home. Every day, I carry your smile with me, your voice in the silence. It is the light that guides me through the darkest nights. The trench is unusually still as night falls. The distant echoes of artillery fire fade into a quiet hum, and a pale moon casts a silver glow, stretching long shadows across the muddy walls. The world seems paused, suspended between moments of fear and fragile hope. You close your eyes, the tin pressed warmly against your chest. For a brief moment, the cold fades, replaced by the warmth of memories, of Clara's laughter, of a life waiting beyond the war. Tomorrow remains uncertain, a path obscured by the fog of battle and time. But tonight, there is peace. You have your memories, your words, and the promise of a love that refuses to fade. As you drift towards sleep, the last letter rests beside you, a whisper carried on the wind, an echo of hope amid the endless night. Chapter 15. The final days blur together in a swirling haze of mud, rain, and whispered fears. The relentless drizzle has transformed the trenches into soggy rivers, the water pooling in the deepest ruts like cold mirrors reflecting the sky's eternal gray. Each step feels heavier than the last, as if the earth itself conspires to pull you down into its endless depths. The weight of your boots, the weight of the tin pressed against your chest, the weight of all the hopes, fears, and memories you carry. These burdens merge into one. You move through this quagmire with numb determination. The tin, your precious sanctuary, remains close, a vessel for words and memories that refuse to be forgotten, a beacon of hope tethered to a world far beyond this muddy battlefield. You write less often now, though not because the words have run dry. On the contrary, your heart brims with things unsaid, thoughts, confessions, dreams, and regrets. But the silence around you grows louder, pressing in like a heavy fog that muffles even the cries of the wounded and the distant thunder of artillery. The war is wearing you down, stripping away your strength and resilience, but the flame of your love for Clara still flickers inside you, small, steady, and stubborn against the storm. Amid this bleakness, your mind clings to stories told by the older soldiers. They speak in hushed tones about Cher Amy, the famous carrier pigeon who, despite being wounded, flew through a hail of bullets to deliver a vital message that saved nearly 200 men. That bird has become a symbol here, a reminder that even the smallest act of courage, even a single letter or flight, can shift the course of history. You smile faintly in the dim light of the trench, imagining that brave little bird soaring above the chaos, carrying messages of hope and survival. Historians will one day debate whether letters like yours were ever truly meant to be read by anyone beyond their intended recipient, or if they served as private dialogues with hope itself, a way for soldiers to wrestle with their fears and hold on to their humanity amid the madness. Maybe both are true. For you, these letters are more than ink on paper. They are fragments of your soul, carefully sealed in this tin and buried deep beneath the mud, protected from the chaos above. Suddenly, a shell explodes nearby, shaking the very earth beneath your feet. The concussion sends a jolt through your body, your heart pounding violently against your ribs. Instinctively, you clutch the tin tighter, feeling the cool metal bite against your palm. Your thoughts flash instantly to Clara, her face, her smile, her voice, a soft glow in the darkness of your memory. In that brief stillness, you take up your pen once more and write one final letter, your hand steady despite the trembling around you. My dearest Clara, if this letter finds you, know that I fought not just for country, but for the promise of seeing you again. If these words are lost to the mud, let them still carry my love through time. I am yours always. The words flow from your heart, raw and true, a final testament to a love that no war can extinguish. The war drags on. You do not know what tomorrow will bring, or if you will ever see Clara again, but you find solace in knowing that the letters, the tin, and your story are part of something larger. A silent testimony buried in the mud, waiting to be unearthed. Decades later, long after the guns have fallen silent and the battlefields have been reclaimed by nature, the tin is found. It emerges from the earth, battered but intact. Inside, the letters remain, yellowed with age but clear as if you had written them yesterday. They whisper a tale of love, hope, resilience, and the raw humanity that endured beneath the horrors of war. You are no longer just a soldier lost in the vast, relentless tide of history, a number among millions, swallowed by the chaos of war. You have become something far more enduring, a voice from the past, a whispered memory carried across generations. Your story has become a bridge, a fragile yet unbreakable connection between the unbearable pain and sacrifice of that long-ago time and the hearts of those who come after, who listen and remember. Through your words, the harsh realities of war transform into something deeply personal, a glimpse into a life interrupted, a love that refused to fade, and a spirit that held on against all odds. Your letters speak across time, reminding us all that behind every uniform was a human being, someone who laughed, dreamed, and loved fiercely, someone who feared the unknown yet dared to hope, someone who longed not for glory or fame, but for simple moments of peace, a warm embrace, a whispered name, a touch of home. Your story strips away the facelessness of history, painting a vivid portrait of a soul who, despite the horrors around them, never lost sight of their humanity. Now, as you lie beneath the earth, silent, still, but never forgotten, your journey is complete. The trenches have faded, the guns have fallen silent, and the fields have grown quiet once more. Yet your words live on, carried by the hands and hearts of those who find them, who pause to listen to the echoes of your life. They live on in the soft rustle of pages turned, in classrooms where young minds learn the cost of peace, and in moments of quiet reflection when we all remember what it truly means to be human. Rest now, brave soul. The war is over. The battle you fought beyond the front lines, the fight to keep hope alive, has been won. Your story has been told, and through it you continue to live, not just as a soldier, but as a beacon of love, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Wind down, the night stretches softly now, the weight of war slowly fading into the quiet hum of memory. Imagine yourself wrapped in a gentle blanket of peace, the distant echoes of battle replaced by the soothing rhythm of your own breath. The letters, once trapped in mud and turmoil, now rest easy, carrying love beyond time and space. Let the warmth of hope and remembrance lull you deeper into calm, the shadows retreating as light fills the room. Your story, like these words, remains quiet, enduring, and full of gentle strength. So close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let sleep take you gently into dreams where love and history entwine.